Hello everyone, my name is El Parnaso, and after this video you're gonna know why I didn't play High Caesar in my Yubel Fiendsmith deck and why I fell in love with Pot of Prosperity for this one. So before going to the video, I just wanted to clarify what I'm trying to mend with the illusion cards. Like obviously not the type, like the illusion type cards, like the Chimera, etc. What I'm trying to mend is some kind of joker cards, in the sense that they're not fulfilling a role in the deck, as for example a starter role or an extender role or a board breaker role, but they're really close to try to achieve it or to get you there. For example, in the Yubel Fiendsmith deck, the Samsara Lotus will be the starter of the deck. However, there's a lot of cards that can get you to the Samsara, so you can start your combo, even though their roles in the deck are not to be a starter to begin with, or the main role of those cards is not to be that way. For example, the Fiendsmith Tractus card is more meant to be an extension for the Samsara than to be an starter that gets you to the Samsara, but it can fulfill also that role. So in that case, the extender Fiendsmith Tractus has the plus to be an illusion of an starter, because it can get you to the starter of your deck, the Samsara Lotus, or gets you the end boards that the Samsara Lotus allows you to do. So the more you start to think about it, the more cards you're gonna find that can fulfill that illusion roles. But the important thing for the matter of this video is to understand if the value of that illusion is worthy enough to add it to your deck, considering the pros and the consequences of adding that card, the investment, etc. And that's what we're gonna try to do, to explain why no Caesar and why yes Prosperity. Now, this will be the end board after you normal summon Samsara and the combo goes successfully. These are seven interruptions. If you want to know more about it, I already made a video with some combos explaining it. But now, what do we add to this end board if we add the high DDD Caesar? Because don't get me wrong, I think this is a really good card, so let's look what the Caesar accomplished to this end board. First, it adds 2 disruptions that negates and destroy your opponent's cards that are not once per turn nor once per chain. Also, it's very important to emphasize that it's a 2800 bit steed that the deck can use to push for damage. However, what does the Yubel Fiendsmith deck actually wants if he can allows to add an extra bonus monster to the end board? I think that's the problem with the Caesar, because yes, the Caesar can negate and destroy, but the negations that the deck actually needs, the Caesar can negate. For example, it can negate the Heavenly, it can negate triple tactical talents, it can negate Darkhold, it can negate Raigeki, it can negate Duster, Lighting, etc. So in that sense, the disruptions that the Caesar allows are not playing around the board breakers that the opponent may use. So that means that you're not punishing your opponent with this extra boss monster if they hold their hand with the board breaker approach instead of trying to use hand traps against you, which is something that the deck can afford, because you can play around the hand traps with the deck the way it's built, and if you're adding the investment of an extra boss monster, that extra boss monster should allow you to play around more board breakers, something that you're somewhat lacking of. So, as a summary, the problems with Caesar is that it can't stop all the board breakers that your opponent is going to use, so it rewards your opponent for using that approach, and the disruption of negation is not generic enough to justify the usage of these cards. For example, it can negate the effect of Snake Eye Ash to add, the activation of Temple, etc., because it's not a generic negation. In order to understand the Pot of Prosperity idea, first I think it's very important to give a brief explanation of what we were looking as an extra starter for the deck, like the requirements that we were looking for. First, we don't want to add more than one card to the main deck. like the card that we were trying to look for needed to be just one and only one card. Also, it has to achieve what the other starters in the deck already accomplished, if not more. And it needed to be an extender in case you have already a starter to play with. Having said that, obviously Pot of Prosperity accomplished that we don't only need to add the actual Pot of Prosperity and nothing more. So let's see now if it can achieve the other requirements. First, let's see how Pot of Prosperity can accomplish to be an illusion of an starter if we open in the open 5 we only have the pot as an attempt to start with, like if the other 4 cards are nothing. So we have as possible targets the 1/1, the Lurie, we have 3 Engraver, we have 3 Tractus, we have 3 Samsaras, we have the 3 Nightmare Thrones, and we have the Terraforming. So that means that after we draw 5, inside the 35 of our deck, we only need to see one of 15 in the other top 3 of the cards of our deck if the Prosperity resolves. Which means that within all these top 3 of the deck left, we only need to see one of almost half of the possibilities of the whole deck. So as we can see, the attempts to actually Prosperity being one of the starters are very high. Also, if you already have one of those starters, you can start to try to play with that, and if you get interrupted, the Pot of Prosperity only need to get any of the other ones to keep playing. Now, let's put ourselves in the situation that you combo through everything, like your opponent is not good enough to draw hand traps in your turn, so you get the full combo. And what do you do with Pot of Prosperity after that? First, let me just take this out, give me just a second. After you combo through, a lot of your bricks are gonna be out of the deck, but it's worth mentioning some of those. If you just take them out of the equation, maybe just the Yubels inside of the deck, but besides that, you have all of these targets as good targets of non-engine with Prosperity. You have 3 crossouts. Let me see. You still have a lot of hand traps to try to gather, like the Bestials, the Nibiru, the Droll, the Ogre, the Baylor, one of the 2 Ashes, one of the 3 Imperms, a Talents, or the Call by the Grave. As you can see, there's a lot of non-engine that you can still use to replace the Prosperity with another card that you can actually work to try to get further in the duel. Even though the main role of the Prosperity is to be an illusion of an starter, we can see that even if that role is not necessary in an actual duel, the Pot of Prosperity can work even as the illusion of a non-engine card, which is more than the requirements that we were looking for. But what do we take from the deck to put the Prosperity? In this version of the deck, we decide to take the second Gruesome out of the deck in order to put the Prosperity in and still playing 40 cards in the deck. The reason behind it is that if we actually compare the 3 situations of the Prosperity before in this video with the second Gruesome instead, we're gonna see that we don't actually need that extra brick in the deck. Even if we draw the Samsara, because, for example, if we only have the Gruesome, we're gonna pass. If we have the Samsara and it gets interrupted, the Gruesome can somewhat help, but at the same time you're losing the extender that Nightmare Pain should get into you, which means that even though Gruesome is an extender, is a necessary extender that you're just playing actually just because of the Nightmare Pain interaction more than because of an extender. You'd rather have, for example, a Tractus. And even if you have the Samsara and the Tractus, that only means that the second Gruesome is gonna be a brick in your hand after you add the second one with the Nightmare Pain. That's not gonna be absolutely nothing in the opponent's turn, which means that in all of 3 of these scenarios, you would rather have the Pot of Prosperity than the second Gruesome. But what do we banish as cost for the Prosperity? As an example for this video, I'm going to show what do you banish if you don't have nothing else and you need this as your actual starter. First, you banish the Barudras, you banish the second Llama, and you banish the Nightmare Phoenix or the Caesar if you don't care about what you say earlier and you still want to play it. Like, you still banish it as Caesar if you still want to play the card. Now, why do we banish the Phoenix? Well, because of its role as being a better extra deck toolbox than the Caesar, because as I explained before, I think Caesar is not a good illusion of a boss monster for this deck, and if the role is being a toolbox, I think Phoenix fulfills that role better. But Phoenix still being a toolbox is the least necessary in the extra deck, so it can be a real good cause for the prosperity. Regarding the Barudras, I know that it's a heavy boss monster for the deck, but you actually only summon it with combos in the deck with your starters, like Samsara plus some Fiendsmith card. So, if you don't even have a starter to begin with in this scenario when you have nothing but the prosperity, you don't actually going to summon the Barudras after at least turn 3 and if you're winning already. So, you rather, it costed to begin with and you actually start to play. And the second Llama because it's only necessary also for plus combos with combination of starters. So that will be the end for today's video. If you like it, please subscribe and share. Let me know what do you think about it, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.